Who wouldn't like a big, well-equipped, well-loaded shop with every imaginable tool? Unfortunately, we all have space and budget constraints. If you are starting out, what tools do you need? Do you already have a shop? What tools should you add next? To answer those questions, ask yourself, what type of projects do I want to build? This will make a big difference in what tools you need to make those items. So, let's take my shop as an example. This is my 100th YouTube video, and I've shown how to build 48 different items. What tools did I use, and what would you need if you were starting or adding to an existing shop? Every project starts with an idea. I usually download mine as PDF files from internet sites. Then decide what species of wood you would like to use for this project: oak, poplar, walnut, whatever. It's a good idea then to take the patterns and lay them out on the piece of wood that you would like to use. Make sure that it's wide enough to accommodate the widest part of the pattern, and you want it long enough so that you'll be able to fit everything on the one piece of wood. Or maybe you'll need several if it's a large pattern. You buy my wood in bulk from a hardwood dealer and store it on a rack just inside the workshop door. Since I store my boards in 6-foot lengths, I first need to cut the board to either rough or final length. Now I'm at the point where I have to make a decision, and that is how to cut the stock to rough length. I want to have it long enough for all the patterns to fit, with a little bit extra for insurance. I started with a circular saw. This is a good tool to have around the house for odd DIY tasks. If you're just starting out, this is easy on the budget, and it works fine for cross-cutting boards to length. An upgrade, but more expensive alternative would be to have a miter saw. Once you've cut the wood to a rough length, you may need to cut it to width. You could use the circular saw here, but it's not the best choice for making long, straight cuts. By far, the table saw is the best tool to use for this task. You get fast and accurate cuts with a fence and a rip blade. Tabletop and job site saws are available at reasonable prices. I was fortunate to have the space and a birthday gift from my mother to put a cabinet saw in my shop. It will cross-cut and rip, although over time I've come to use the radial arm saw with a cross-cut blade for cross-cuts and the table saw with a rip blade to make the rip cuts. So far you need a way to cut boards to length and width. The circular saw is inexpensive and a great way to cut to length. It doesn't do a great job on ripping to width, though. A compound miter saw is also great for cutting to length, and as the name implies, it's good for cutting miters, but you can't use it for ripping stock to width. A table saw will cut to length and width, but it's more expensive, and it's going to take up more room in your shop. So you have a decision here. For the next step, we need to back up and look at your lumber source. If you purchase S4S lumber, that means it's surfaced 4 sides. It is already smooth, and the sides are 90 degrees to the top and bottom. I buy my lumber in bulk. The top and bottom are slightly rough, but almost usable. Still, the sides are usually rough cut and only sometimes parallel. I also use thinner stock frequently, and that means resawing. That's a subject for another video. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Hardwood lumber designations are different from dimensional lumber, 2x4, and so on. I also have a video if you're unfamiliar with the terms and need a refresher. Since I purchase my wood from a hardwood dealer, the 4/4 stock is usually about 13/16 thick. So if I need a 3/4 inch thickness for a project, I'll need to run it through the thickness planer to get it to the final dimension and to save time sanding later. So here you have a choice. If you have a source for S4S boards, you can use that and you won't need a thickness planer, but you will pay more for this wood. If you do a lot of woodworking, the thickness planer will pay for itself over time. The thickness planer is optional, but if you add a thickness planer to your shop, you must also have a dust collector. The thickness planer spews out an incredible amount of sawdust, and you'll be up to your knees in sawdust and unable to breathe without one. And don't think you can get by with a shop vacuum. They can't handle the volume. A large number of things I build require means to drill holes. If you don't already have one, you should buy a cordless drill driver. I have 2 and 2 batteries for each. Some DIY projects require driving a lot of screws. The drill may be enough for most projects, but eventually you want to graduate to a drill press. I have 2. The first is a benchtop model and was another Christmas gift from my mother. The second is a more powerful floor model that can drill items that would not fit the benchtop model. It also has a laser sight and a very good depth stop mechanism. So add a drill or drill press or both to your must-have list. A bandsaw is not necessary, and I went for years without one, then got a hand-me-down benchtop model from one of my brothers-in-law. The bandsaw can be used with a fence to ripstock to width, and it's great for cutting curves. If you can use it to rough cut boards to manageable lengths for scroll saw projects. I also usually start the resawing process on my table saw and finish on the bandsaw because it's a safer way to make the final cut. Bandsaw can go on the list for later purchase, not in immediate need. Since this channel focuses on scroll saw project, you will need a scroll saw to do the projects I demonstrate. Scroll saw is a unique tool. You can use it to make intricate interior and exterior cuts getting excellent detail. I consider it indispensable for toy making. It's also one of the safest tools in the shop. You can use it to introduce your children to the craft of woodworking when they're old enough. There's a wide price range for scroll saws, so you should be able to find one to fit your budget. I recommend avoiding saws that only take blades with pin ends because they'll severely limit the type of cuts you can make. There are plenty of online reviews for the low price scroll saw, so check them out if that's your budget range. It's been many years since I used an entry-level scroll saw, so I can't make an informed opinion of what's available today. In the mid-price range, I can recommend the DeWalt DW788. I previously owned one, and it worked very well for me. I eventually wore it out. If your budget permits, my recommendation is the Pegas 21-inch scroll saw. I added this tool to my shop just a few weeks before I recorded this video, and it's performed flawlessly. We'll give a link to Bearwood Supply in the description. This is an affiliate link, and I will receive a commission on any orders placed through that link. Along with the scroll saw, you will need blades. I'll link to a video where I tested 14 different blades. Though it was not a scientific test, it confirmed that the best blade for my work style was the Pegas Modified Geometry blade, which is also available through Bearwood Supply. I've noticed that many other scroll saw users use this as their go-to blade as well. The last tool I'll mention is not a single tool, but a category of tools, sanding. You can do all your sanding by hand, but I'm afraid that would soon cause you to give up woodworking altogether. There are disc sanders, belt sanders, spindle sanders, random orbit sanders, sheet sanders, and I think that's most of them. You'll likely need 2 or more sanders dictated by the type of work you do. So, what tools do you absolutely, positively need? To make every project I've shown so far, you will need a means to cut wood to length and width. A table saw is the best option, but this can be done with other tools. A thickness planer is optional, but once you buy one, you will need a dust collector to go with it. You'll need a way to drill holes, and you can start as simply as with a hand drill driver or splurge on a floor standing drill press. A bandsaw is optional, but you will undoubtedly need a scroll saw to make the toys and home decor items I make. Lastly, you'll need a way to sand those pieces before you apply a finish. It took me years to acquire a shop full of tools, one at a time, so I don't think you have to do it all at once. Buy a new tool only when you need it. Learn to operate it safely before using it. Have fun building things and create some sawdust in the process. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I usually release a new video weekly, primarily oriented to scroll saw projects. I love to read and respond to your comments about what tools you have, what tools you think everyone needs, and what tools are on your wish list. I respond to every comment as soon as I can.